to the Chapcast, Midland College's official podcast offering real people and real stories that shape our community. I'm your host, Adrian Vega, and I serve as Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Development here at Midland College. And today, super excited to have our guests. Today, we're joined by Lori Haltom, Executive Director of College and Career Connections, also known as C3. Lori, welcome to today's show.
Thank you. I'm excited. I am from Odessa, so I've been in this region basically my entire life. I graduated from Permian High School, proud graduate, class of 2000. Let's go. From there, I played softball all of high school, all junior high, elementary, but from there I was recruited to play at a community college in Great Bend, Kansas, Barton County. Go Cougs. Okay. Made some of my best friends of my life there. From there, I transferred and went and played my last 2 years at a pretty small D2. At the time, it was at NAIA, but now it's a D2 Northwestern Oklahoma. Got my degree. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I really thought I was going to go pre-med. I was pre-med through my senior year. My brother called and said, we're having a baby. And I said, I got to get back to Texas. It's going to be my first nephew. So was able to graduate and come back and teach and coach. Got to teach and coach at my alma mater. I taught sophomore English for a long time. And then I did senior English my last 2 years. Coached a lot of amazing young ladies. Some of them went on to do amazing things. A lot of them went on to do to play college softball. And then from there, I went to Crane and coached 2 years. Probably my favorite 2 years of coaching in my life. Very humbling experience just to see the difference when you go from a large 6A to a not large 6A. Then I got my master's and decided I think I want to be an athletic director, but you got to start somewhere. So I was an assistant principal at Goddard Junior High, got hired by Shelly Haney, who works here now. And then eventually I got to become the head principal there. Thought I'd be there for 1 year at junior high. Really thought high school was my calling. Fell in love with the administrative side of junior high. Those kids and teachers are amazing. Realized real quick I would have been a terrible junior high teacher. But I was the head principal there for a few years, and then C3 popped up, and so that's kind of how I got to Midland College. Funny story, I live right across the street from Midland College, literally 3 houses in, and I had never set foot in a single building at Midland College until I interviewed here. So that's kind of the draw to it, too, is that I didn't know what all was here, and so I want people to know what Midland College has to offer. But the C3 position posted, really read the description, thought it was something that really kind of piqued my interest. So then when I interviewed here, when I found out that I was going to get to work pretty closely with MISD, I made a lot of friends, met a lot of students and parents that I really loved in Midland ISD. And so the opportunity to get to continue to work with them was very appealing. What
is C3? What is its purpose? And, kind of how are y'all organized or structured?
Yeah. So the tagline I'm supposed to say is that C3 is a joint venture between Midland College and MISD, but it's just so much more than that. It came about, honestly, from a lot of different philanthropy within Midland. Mm-hmm. They just noticed a regional need, and it's a need that's not going away, a need for credentialed Midland citizens. We know that we bring in a lot of employment from out of Midland. We bring in people from the larger metropolitans, and we'd much rather grow our own. So that's a little bit of where we came from, just a need for developing our high school graduates. So C3 is so many things, but the biggest thing is it's a voice for students to help them find their voice. And so, a lot of K-12, and we'll probably get into this later, but a lot of K-12 educators and just the K-12 industry in itself, I know we shouldn't call it that, their lone goal is to get students to graduation. Mm-hmm. And there's so many pieces that come with that. And where C3 comes in is we help kids decide what they're going to do after graduation. And so I know that we're going to get into what C3 represents and what it does, but just know that our what we want to do the most is give students the tools to communicate their needs, their wants, their future, just so many pieces. And we do a lot with parents, too. We meet with parents a lot. They get a lot of communication from us. A lot of students come from a background where they're going to be the first gen in their family to ever go to college, and so that really appeals to me. I'm a first gen myself. Neither one of my parents graduated college. I have an amazing mom who put me through everything and helped me through so much, but didn't know what I was going to do, and so I want to help those kids figure out what they're going to do.
Right. So can you kind of tell me about the role of a coach, what they do, and then what are they doing at the high school campus versus the middle school campus? because really what we're talking about is exposure as well as connecting dots. But early on, it's about exposure.
Yeah, so we're actually on 35 campuses.
Okay.
So Midland, everyone from this area knows that Midland is you're either purple or maroon. So we stuck with that same mantra and we split our teams into purple and maroon. So I have 3 high school coaches at Midland High that serve the purple side. Jared Andrews is our lead coach for that side. And there are 2 junior highs that feed Midland High, and that's Goddard and San Jacinto. So I have 2 coaches, one at Goddard, one at San Jacinto. And then for the most part, there are 6 elementaries that feed each of those. So those coaches at the junior highs also serve those 6 elementaries. And then on the maroon side, we have the same thing. So at Lee High School, we have 3 C3 coaches. Nicole Ramos is the lead for the maroon side. Then we have 2 junior high feeders in Abel and Alamo, and we have 2 coaches there, and then 6 elementaries there. Our first year, we didn't serve Coleman and MAP because we didn't know what we were doing yet. And so now we also serve Coleman and MAP because we want to make sure we get to every senior. So that's the dynamic of the breakdown of it. And then we really get into different facets of what they're going to talk about. So my high school coaches are really focused on meeting with seniors first, and that's because we don't have much time to figure out what they're going to do after they graduate. My junior high coaches are primarily meeting with 8th grade students, and we can kind of get to that a little bit later too, but my opinion is 8th grade is the most impactful grade of a student's K-12 journey. It's so much different than when you and I went to high school, because I think you went to high school in Texas as well. But when we graduated, we had basically 2 graduation plans to choose from. Students have to pick a pathway and an endorsement and all these pieces that go with it. And it's really confusing, especially for parents that are even, from Texas and graduated. It's just different. So 8th grade is super impactful because they have to pick what they're going to do for the next 4 years. So my junior high coaches, even though it doesn't seem like they have as much of an impact on the graduation piece, like what they do after graduation, what they talk to kids about their 8th grade year really formulates their graduation and their post-graduation, because there's so many pieces in high school that can set up your post-grad plan. And then with 6th graders, man, that's a whole different animal. So a lot of people don't know we meet with 6th graders. Right now, we're on all these elementary campuses. Thankful for the bond that passed in MISD that soon in 2028, we won't be on those elementary campuses because 6th graders will be on the middle school campuses. But for now, we're on those campuses because we realize that there are a lot of kids in the 6th grade that have to make a high school choice in the 7th grade. We have a lot of kids taking high school credit courses as a 7th grader at 12 years old, impacting what's going to count towards their GPA at 18. So we meet with 6th graders pretty heavily too. A lot of that's vocabulary based. Kids don't know what a GPA is, not because they haven't been told, but because it doesn't matter to them yet. So we start talking about a GPA, a high school credit, an endorsement, a pathway, a lot of vocabulary, so that whenever they meet with someone or when it comes time to make have those discussions, they have an informed conversation with the adult they're talking to.
Yeah, and I know I'm familiar with the program, and I've heard you present on the components of the program, and I think what I find pretty impressive about it is it seems like it's pretty comprehensive in how y'all roll it out. And I don't want to say it's tiered, but it like the level of contact, the level of engagement, the level of interaction for, like you said, seniors. I'm not saying they're late to the game, but it's like right around the corner.
Yeah.
Versus what you are doing with juniors, what you are doing with sophomores, what you're doing with freshmen, and then also what you're doing in the junior highs or the middle school. So can you unpack that a little bit to kind of just the rollout of, the types of engagement and the frequency and what that looks like per level?
Kind of start with 6th grade just because it'll kind of make a cycle out of it. So very fortunate that the 6th grade teachers, the principals, the counselors at 6th grade really bought in early to what we're trying to do. We meet with them as a whole group. So a lesson that we might present, we'll use my proximity because I know it the best. So what we might present at Emerson, that's a Goddard feeder, we will have that same presentation for all of the 6th grade classes at all of the campuses that C3 coach serves. And so they, like I said earlier, they get a lot of vocabulary, a lot of just big picture. With 8th graders, it's pretty much a one-on-one conversation. So a C3 coach is meeting with them one-on-one. They have a graduation plan in front of them. They're talking through it because a student doesn't necessarily know what all components they need to graduate. So that's a one-on-one conversation. Those conversations are driven by a survey that all of our students take. It's a career interest survey. We have so many kids who say, I want to be a pro athlete, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer. Okay, well, let's look at what you're really interested in. And so they take these surveys. our C3 coaches have the results of those surveys, and they have a one-on-one conversation. So I might say, Adrian, you really tell me that you want to be an engineer, but let's look at your math scores. You haven't necessarily been very successful in math. That doesn't mean you can't be an engineer, but let's find something that might be more suited to your strengths. And it's a conversation. We don't try to convince a kid of anything. That is their choice. We want to show them the opportunities they have with that choice. So we have sixth graders and eighth graders, and then, like I said, seniors. Seniors are also a one-on-one conversation. I have 6 coaches that meet with 1,500 seniors. We try to knock all of them out in the first semester so that they're ready for deadlines, applications, and things like that. Those conversations are also pretty much driven by their graduation plan. But the number one question every student gets asked when they walk in the room is, do you have a plan after graduation? Some kids come in and say, yeah, I'm going to UT. I've already been accepted. My parents and my grandparents went to UT. I already know what I'm doing. I already know what dorm I'm staying in. Fantastic. If you need anything, come back and see us. But then we have the same students that come in 10 minutes later that we're meeting with. We ask them that same question. They say, I don't know. I'm probably going to get a job when I graduate. Well, have you considered looking at other opportunities? And so we try to just explore those opportunities with them. We know it's a reality in Midland, in Odessa, and most of the Permian Basin, that a lot of students will have to go work right after they graduate. But what we tell them about is, did you know Midland College has night classes? Did you know you can get your degree online? Did you know that you can get a certificate, a level 1 certificate, in 12 months or less? And so, again, not trying to convince a kid of anything. We're really just trying to show them all of their opportunities. And so those conversations are more driven, they get more intense, I guess you could say, as they progress in their grades, because once we meet with a senior, we don't have that much opportunity left to talk with them. So then we have kids who figure out that, I can come back every day and ask all of my questions. And so we can't always answer all of them, but I'm really good at finding the person that can answer them.
So one of the things that we've done locally is we've formed the dual credit leadership team, which you're a part of. How does C3 fit in that broader scheme? Because I know that we don't want to trip over each other's feet. It's about working more efficiently, and I know that your team has a great relationship with our student services team and really kind of knowing our lanes. But how does C3 interact with this broader support for dual credit?
Yeah, well, that really starts with the reason that we are so successful and able to assist students and build that relationship is because Midland ISD has fully bought into allowing us access to their students. Okay. We're on those campuses every single day. At most campuses, they've given us an office or a classroom that we can really identify as ours. So I say that because that gives us kind of a baseline to know that this is why we get all the questions. Students see us and automatically think, it's Midland College. And so this all-encompassing idea that they can answer every Midland College question there is. And so we had to understand that kids are going to come up to us with questions we don't necessarily know the answers to, but we have to go and learn those. And so I'll kind of branch off and tell you how we learned those, and then it'll all come back. So last summer, we did what we called Midland College field trips. When we first got hired, we only had one person on our team that had ever worked in higher ed. And so throughout our first year, a kid would ask about the fire academy, or they'd ask about rad tech, or they would ask about something that we didn't know the answer to. So we went and immersed ourselves in it. We went to the fire academy and spent a few hours out there. We went to the aviation hangar, spoke with them. We went to the CDL piece. We went to rad tech. We went to nursing. Everyone here was more than willing to host us and teach us. And so that drove the conversation with students that said, I really think I want to get my phlebotomy license. Okay, we went and met with that instructor, and we know exactly what you need to do. We sat in the lab. We know how many students are going to be in there. So we could have that conversation to tell them we've been in there. We can talk through that with you. Now, how that comes back to dual credit is when we first got to MISD, a lot of the dual credit piece where we got held up was in administrative, just some registration, some paperwork stuff. And so we were able to, because we had access to students, they'd say, hey, run to Adrian's class. He's in room 512. All we need him to do is sign this piece. He forgot to sign off on something. So our team would run to room 512 and get that signature. So just proximity alone has afforded us a lot of opportunities. And then fast forward to now, like you said, we're on the dual credit leadership team, forming that relationship with Nareda Huffman and with Joseph, and just really knowing that I can shoot them a text and just get an answer really quick. It really just helps students know that they might get an immediate answer. Right. And so I keep thinking in my head, they added that third piece of C3, that connections piece. We're the connection to so many pieces, and we're fine with that. And dual credit, we can get into a lot of that later, but just that was our first segue in because that was at the very beginning of the year. It was in August of 2025, and so we were helping with that right off the bat.
So now going into year 3 with systems are, a little bit tighter and more fluid, one of the things that I would say is probably most impactful or that helps the work that y'all do is just our data sharing agreement that we have with MISD. And I think it's pretty unique. I don't think it's uncommon for ISDs and colleges maybe to share data, but I think the way that MISD and MC is sharing data by y'all having access, or like you said, speaking well with the counselors, or just really trying to make things more efficient in terms of supporting students. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so the biggest part of the data share is that we're mutual benefactors. I think that, so many times in K-12, we see the next gimmick that comes along, and if it doesn't work, it's the next person the next year. And so we have made it clear that we're going to offer consistency. And so having that data share agreement, they know that they're not exposing their district to something that we're going to take and use it for a different, for our own gains. So many pieces of that data tell us what we need to do better. So just for instance, just working with Jeff Horner and his CTE department, if he can tell us this is where we're noticing that we have a disconnect, students don't finish their 3rd or 4th year of this, we know that we can have conversations with students as an 8th grader about, okay, 4 years from now, you're going to want a senior off period, but you're still going to need this class. Let's make sure that we're committed to the 4-year completion of this. So we use the data to drive our conversations. We also use the data to know that what we're doing works. Just using our conversation, our personnel, our relationship with students and teachers. We even have dual credit teachers that can come and say, hey, I have a kid that got locked out of Canvas. I'm locked out. I don't know who to call. And so we're really creating those connections. And now, we're creating systems that are going to fix that too. But being on the campuses has helped us identify the issues that need to be fixed.
But are there any other data points that stand out to you?
Yeah, so there's one that's easily measurable, and that's students that enroll in college their freshman year right after graduation. When I talk to teachers and kids and parents about it, I talk about your freshman year is when you're trying to buy a house and you're going and you're doing all these house visits and you see one you want to buy. Until you put that down, that deposit down, which is your application and your registration, you don't own that house. And so we talk about that part. So we've seen an increase in that first year. We haven't necessarily seen an increase, but we've seen an earlier completion of financial aid applications, which is our graduation requirement. We're very fortunate that MISD has allowed us to go through their senior classes. And what we do is we help students create their financial aid ID, their FSA ID, which is the first step. Kids don't have a personal email address. So we even help them create a personal email address because they're going to need that after graduation. And then another thing that we help with is Apply Texas. And I mean, literally every single senior we're helping with that. And we have the outreach department from Midland College that comes out too. And then we have the CCMR coordinators from the ISDs, Heather Clark, Stacy Duncan from MISD. We all try to get all hands on deck. Again, those kids were taking care of their financial aid applications and their Applied Texas. It just wasn't happening. We do all seniors in 1 week. So just the turnaround time, just knowing that that's something that those CCMR folks at Midland High and Lee don't have to worry about because we're helping them with that.
So it's easy to talk about numbers. We always look at numbers, but numbers represent people, right?
Yep.
They're students, right? Can you think of any particular story or of an individual or individuals that where this is making a difference?
Yeah. So I have two kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, but we had one with our first year, a student that was a Cuban refugee, met his C3 coach, said he was just going to go. He was already working at Flying J, already had a job. He was just going to work when he finished. He was going to leave. I think he had his level 1, I believe his welding certificate for level 1, but just really didn't know what he could do next. So met with his C3 coach. She showed him all the pieces of what he could do, got him in contact with the right people to try to get some documentation taken care of. We had these big crosstown contests our first year, so he actually participated in our basketball crosstown contest, and so he won 1 year full scholarship to Midland College, but getting him enrolled and all that. So fast forward to the second semester of his senior year, we do these things called senior visits, and so we kind of came up with that. I was fortunate. I was recruited as a college athlete. They roll out the red carpet for you. I mean, even at a community college in the middle of Kansas, they take care of you, put you in a hotel, take care of your meals. So we talked about, we wanted seniors in MISD that were going to come to Midland College. I wanted them to feel like they were getting recruited. So we took these opportunities to bring seniors that had expressed interest in Midland College, bring them on campus, feed them breakfast, tour the campus, feed them lunch, coolest thing ever, register them right then. So the advising team came in and were able to advise them right then. The reason I wanted to connect that back to the student is he came with his sister, who was also a Cuban refugee. After we got him enrolled in his classes, she stayed behind and said, can you help me too? Wasn't even an MISD student, had been out of high school for a couple of years, but got her registered that same day
awesome.
too. So one of my favorite stories, a pretty unique one. Another cool one is, like I said, I was a principal at Goddard for a few years, so I know a lot of those Goddard students that graduate from Midland High and ECHS, and just the parents who reach out to me and will email me and tell me, my kiddo didn't even express a single iota of interest in going to college, and then ran into, because some of my Goddard teachers are on our C3 team, ran into Miss Little at Midland High, said, "What are you doing here?" She explained what she did. The kid kept coming back. He was a junior last year, kept coming back. As a senior, we've gotten him taken care of. He's going to go to UTPB. I have every belief that student's going to be an engineer and going to make way more impactful decisions and money than I'll ever make in my life. But just didn't know what his opportunities were until he met with a C3 coach, and had two very educated college graduate parents. But we all know no kid wants to talk to their parents. So just offering that outside perspective.
You had mentioned earlier, and I do want to definitely, also highlight, we would not be able to do this C3 or this effort, or a lot of our efforts, without our community support, or more specifically our philanthropic support. Once again, the community of Midland, Midland College, we are so fortunate to have the level of support that we receive. If you don't mind, who are some of our biggest supporters for C3?
Yeah, we're very thankful for all of our benefactors, our funding partners. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Mark Palmer. I think that Damon mentions him often. I think C3 really came to fruition because of an idea or really a conversation that they had. And so we're very thankful for, Abel Hanger, the Warren Foundation, Scarborough, Diamondback, great friends at Diamondback. Very fortunate for Ashley Colquitt. Ashley Colquitt was one of my K-12 friends too. She was over special education for my little area. Clint Williamson, fantastic there too. Henry Foundation, PB House, again, another one that I know from my K-12 world. So Marina Stanlin was my PTA president. And so she was one of the first people I called when I got this job. And I said, "Hey, this is the job I'm taking." And she said, "Oh, we're one of your funders." And I was like, "Oh, thank goodness I told her then. She didn't have to hear it from somebody else." We also have the Faskin. I don't know if I said McGarry Reagan, Warren Cat. I think that's a little bit of everybody.
I think Warren Charitable, is that
Oh, yeah, Warren Charitable also. But see, I do Warren Cat, and then I forget about Warren Charitable, and they're one of the first people I met. So just a lot of people with kids in K-12 also. Allison King has kids in K-12 too. Just a lot of these folks who really see a need to just help the greater community of Midland. And they do it in more than just dollars. They've given me free reign to do a lot of what I do. And so just, like I said, really happy with all of our funders. They check in. I run into them in the community, and the first thing they always run up and say is, "I hear great things about your team." Same thing with the Midland College board. Run into Adrian, I feel like everywhere. Adrian Carrasco, I feel like I run into him everywhere. We see each other at lunch, and I just appreciate that he always takes the time to come and say, "We really appreciate what you're doing." Christine Foreman checks in quite often. Just folks that I semi-knew before I got here. Scott Lynch, I had both of his kids at Goddard. Just, they really believe in what we're doing. And so you have to have the money to fund it, but you also have to have the backing for the support of what you're doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. So as we move forward, we're going into year 3. I would say that this is a model initiative. It's really an exemplar of what can be done, when all these factors come together. Where do you see C3, or what are your goals and your dreams, in year 4 and year 5, et cetera?
Yeah, so I think our immediate just expansion or need to grow would be probably the rest of Midland, all of our service areas. So we see on the horizon pretty quickly, we hope, Greenwood, Fort Stockton, Buena Vista, Reagan County, Sanderson, really just trying to get those guys, even if we just train up a C3 person to do what we do, everyone can be trained to do what we do. And then really what we're kind of seeing a lot of expansion is, I told you we did our field trips last year to learn about Midland College. We're doing our field trips this summer, and we've gotten great response from some folks. And so what I mean by that is we have kids who come to us that say, I really want to go to Angelo State. That's fine. I don't know a lot about Angelo State. So this summer we're visiting Texas Tech, Angelo State, Sul Ross, Odessa College. They offer some things that we don't have. We plan to visit Howard College. We're going to UTPB this Thursday. Because what we want to be able to tell kids when we sit with them is, oh, yeah, I went and visited with their admissions. It's on the first floor. You're going to get a T-shirt and a keychain. Like, we want to be able to have that personal connection with them, that we've been in your shoes. One other piece that we don't really get to talk about a lot because it doesn't necessarily involve us is part of being a CCMR completer could be military. And so I had 3 of my C3 coaches that flew to San Diego, went through 3 days of boot camp, got yelled at, had to, got to eat with some of the new Marines, and really they got to rappel a wall, they got to fire a gun. But the reason we wanted to do that is when kids come in and say, I really think I want to go into the military, they can say, oh, I did that. Now, no, I didn't do it on the grand scale you're going to do it on, but let me tell you what you're going to encounter. And so really that's the next phase of this, is really being able to have a connection with everything a student asks. And the reason we're visiting the schools visiting is because they're all within 2 hours of here. We'll probably have to broaden our horizon after this year, but that's where I see the growth coming, in just our depth of knowledge, knowing what we're talking about, and expanding it to other students. Eventually, we'd love to get the private schools and the charter schools within Midland. I have a lot of friends at TLCA, at Midland Charter Academy, just friends that see me and ask what I'm doing, and they probably get annoyed because of how excited I am. And then at the end, they say, how can we get that? Right. And so hopefully getting to take care of the rest of Midland as well.
So I have 2 more questions. So I do know that, and I don't, and maybe this is just from my knowledge, but you can tell our listeners as well. This past year, we did the science extravaganza, and I think we've done that the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. Was that something that we were doing as Midland College, and then kind of under your leadership, you kind of helped organize that, or is that something that's tied to C3 in the sense that because it's about exposure and getting all the elementary kids on our campus?
I would say it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Full transparency, I opened my big mouth within the first week of being hired here. So I started here in March of 24. Yeah, 24. And Science Extravaganza was that same week. And so they were like, hey, come out. You'll probably know some of the principals getting off the buses. And so me, like I said, opened my big mouth, saw some things that I thought maybe could offer a greater experience for the students. What was going on was happening way before me. Science Extravaganza had been going on for years before me, but saw some things that I thought could help improve it. And so my good friends, Dr. Dixon and Dr. DeLo, said, good, you can have it, take it over, which was fine. So we did take it over. And what we did is we went directly to every 6th grader, every elementary in Midland, and invited them to come. And then we really broke down a system of how to do it. But it's not necessarily our animal, because we don't know all of the pieces of science. Worked very well with Dr. Carrillo the first year and Dr. Pogue the second year, both over math and science, and they kind of gave me free rein too. I told them, give me what you want to do, and I'll work out the logistics. I think just from my years of building a master schedule and building bus schedules for our students, I think that helped kind of piece that out. But hoping to grow it maybe into a bigger than it already is. I think we almost doubled our attendees this last year, but just...
Yeah, and when we talk about double, I think we had almost 2,000 students.
Yeah, we were like at 1,800, so I'm pretty close
like
to that.
Sixth graders on our campus, which is pretty incredible. All right, so as we wrap up, is there anything that I did not ask you or that you'd like to maybe share?
It's not necessarily you didn't ask her, but I want to continue to tell people just the quality of our relationship with MISD and Midland College. And what people don't understand is we're employees of Midland College, but we're not trying to recruit students to Midland College. That doesn't mean if a student expresses interest that we don't show them what to do to get here, but we really are all about giving students a voice. And so one of the things that I know we had discussed a little bit in walking over here is CCMR, and that for a kid to be a CCMR completer within an ISD, that means that they have an understanding of it. They are college, career, military ready, which it's great to be ready, but what are you ready for? And so we help them figure out what they're ready for. And so just very thankful that MISD trusts us with their students. Like I said, I still have a lot of friends there. I'm fortunate I get to go to the campuses a lot. I mean, I don't think you understand. Like, they give us like keys to their buildings. They give us access to their. We have our own Midland ISD emails. We get parking permits on the high schools. They really have taken us in as one of their own. And so I just want to express how thankful I am every time that they trust us to do that, because we want to give them the best experience possible.
Awesome. Well, this has been extremely informative. Lori, thank you so much for joining today's show. So all of you, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share today's podcast. And as always, go Chaps!